Alright, today I'm demonstrating some guitar pedals, the Solar EQ Boost and the Chug Lite. I'll be demonstrating these in the context of using them. The Solar Guitars website did an awesome job of including videos that exhaustively show all the settings. I've put together a rhythm tone and a lead tone, and I'm going to demonstrate it with a Solar guitar, this A1.6, and an Ibanez guitar, this RG550 Genesis, in Road Flare Red. I'm sorry if it looks a little orange. Before I go on, I gotta say this video is sponsored. Solar Guitars gave me these pedals to review. There was no criteria or list of things I had to say or cover, so as the YouTubers say, all the thoughts and opinions are my own. But also I am a fan of Solar Guitars. I've bought a bunch of their guitars, so I figured I would enjoy these pedals too when they reached out to me. So let's start with the Chug Lite. Now, first thing I noticed, there's no battery operation. You have to plug these into a power source. The rubber stick-on feet are included, but they're not on the pedal when you first get it. The pedal itself is all metal according to the website, and it feels pretty solid. And then in terms of power, the pedal takes a minimum of 24 milliamperes and 9 volts DC. Now the controls, and you notice the potentiometer knobs, they are knurled metal. They feel pretty good. It's not too easy to turn them, so I feel the settings will stick if it's just sitting around on your floor. Although if you are transporting this pedal to and from somewhere, you will want to double check your settings because the knobs can still be accidentally turned. The potentiometers don't lock or anything. It is a great rule of thumb to check your pedal settings before getting down to playing. On the top row of controls, there is a bass, middle, and treble, and these do what you think. On the bottom row, there's also an output and a gain control, which also do what you think. There's plenty of gain in this pedal. I didn't have to mess with the output at all. I kept it at noon. Now the frequency control is interesting. According to the website, it targets between 160 Hz and 2.6 kHz, and this affects the middle control. Pretty cool. I played around with it a little bit. It's a pretty cool setting if you want to change up your sound. Now moving on to the Chug EQ Boost. This big boy needs 300 milliamperes minimum current draw, and it also requires 9 volts DC. Just like the Chug Lite, there is no battery operation, so you will need to plug it into a power source. And just like the Chug Lite, you'll need to stick on the rubber feet. Now the controls are where it gets interesting because 5 of these 6 potentiometers are double-decker. They're 2 layers. There's a top and a bottom one. And speaking of controls, something that's a little strange, for the low, medium, and high controls, you'll notice the low and the medium are on the bottom row, but the high is on the top row. So it's in a different place. A bit strange, but as you use this a bunch, you'll get used to it, I think. Something that's cool is both layers of potentiometer have a detent at around 12 o'clock. They're not exactly at 12 o'clock, so maybe the potentiometers weren't exactly put in straight or anything like that. Not the end of the world, but a little odd if you look at it up close. At the end of the day, you are adjusting this to what it sounds like, and then referencing the position if you ever need to reset it, I guess. But still, it would have been nice to have the detents exactly at 12 o'clock noon. So the website description says this is inspired by parametric EQ pedals. It says it has a high-pass filter, high-frequency shelving, and parametric mid and bass controls. I did enjoy using the low-frequency, mid-frequency, and high-frequency controls, although the bandwidth setting I pretty much kept at noon the whole time. The website says it's also good for bass too, and while I didn't demo this with a bass, it is good to know that it would work for that. So let's test these pedals. Let's have some fun. I'm going to cover the setup real quick, and I wanted to kind of simulate something I would use, not just test the pedals in isolation. So I'm going to walk you through my signal chain real quick, and the first pedal I had is a tuner pedal. I always run a tuner pedal when I am playing in like a jam session, a practice session, etc. So I have the tuner pedal first. Right after that, I had the Chug EQ, and after that, I had the Chug Lite. The website describes this more as a distortion pedal, so I put it before my amp. And my amp in this case is the Boss IR2. I have all the settings at noon, and I've selected the clean amp on it. And finally, when I wanted to do leads, I would turn on my Walrus Audio D1. This is the Mako series D1. So first, the rhythm sound I dialed in. I'll show you my settings on screen. Here's how it sounds. Next, I dialed in a lead tone. I tried to make something cutting, yet still full, and I turned on the delay for it. And here's how it sounds. Alright, so some thoughts on these pedals. I'd say the settings were pretty intuitive. If you've played around with amp settings or pedals before, you basically knew what a lot of these would do. And for the ones that you might not be sure about, like the frequency controls, turning them all the way up and all the way down would show you what they would do pretty instantly. I'd say it was pretty easy to get a decent tone. Putting everything at noon would give you something you could use. After playing with all the settings for some time, I was able to start to dial in things a little bit. Now, would I use these in recordings? And I'd have to say probably not, and I'll explain why. I think I'd need to sit down and adjust the settings on these a whole lot longer. For plug-in and go, these are pretty good, and I think it might be possible to use them if I sat down and micro-adjusted everything and really got finicky with these and my amp simulator. The thing is, I primarily use plugins. I've already spent a bunch of years making all my own presets and tweaking them. Maybe someday I'll be able to have a good tone out of them. But there's also been times where I've needed to drastically change my tone, and I currently don't have any hardware to do any kind of reamping or anything. Because I am working in an apartment here, I don't have any loud amps or anything that I can run these through also. Would I use these live though, or at practice sessions? And I absolutely would. It was pretty easy to just plug in and play with these. I didn't have to adjust the settings too much, if at all, to get something I'd have fun with. I feel like they get the job done. You know, you need a distortion, you take the Chug Lite. You want to play around with the EQ a bit more, you take the EQ Boost here. They definitely give you enough gain and control over your EQ to give you something that would cut through the other instruments, if you want, or blend in. Give you something thick sounding, give you something cutting, something modern. For me, I don't need too many other effects. In this case, I had a delay. Sometimes I'll have a phaser. But if I'm in a jam session or playing live, I don't really stress too much about the tone, just because venue or practice room acoustics, they're never going to be perfect. And at venues, you are at the mercy of the sound guy, if there is a sound guy. I think these would also be a good backup if you have a multi-effects processor, if you have other distortion pedals. If you're not doing too much with those, and your multi-effects unit fails, for example, and you just need a distortion, not too much out of it, this would be a great backup, unless you were using this as the primary, in which this hasn't failed yet. I did just get these. And of course, I'm not throwing any shade at any multi-effects processors. Things do happen live. Things will unexpectedly break. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. But what do you think? Do you like these pedals, the Chug Lite and the Chug EQ Boost? Would you like to see some more pedal demos? Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts were on these. And of course, this is YouTube, so I have to say the YouTube things. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, print out every frame and mail it. Check out the socials, join the Discord. If you're looking for something cool to listen to, I'm on major streaming services like Spotify, YouTube Music. I do original songs and some video game music covers. And as always, peace.